was 1878, New Mexico. In the dark corners of saloons and at remote mail stations where life and death intersected, whispers spread about a woman whose name sent chills down the spine of many. Laura Jeffries was more than just a criminal. She was a master strategist, cold, calculating, and ruthless. A woman whose robberies made even the most hardened men break into cold sweats. Laura wasn't one to remain in the shadows. In the 1880s, in a world dominated by men, she showed the kind of bravery and cruelty that made her one of the most notorious criminals of the Wild West. Operating in New Mexico and Arizona, she led a series of daring heists. Mail trains, isolated stations, and remote ranches, nothing could escape her attention. Her origins remain a mystery. Some say she was born into a poor family on the East Coast, where her family lost land in a dispute with powerful landowners. Others believe her life was shaped by vengeance. From small thefts to large criminal operations, perhaps it was this conflict that pushed her into a life of crime. From the start of her criminal career, Laura played her cards carefully. She used her beauty and ability to blend in to gain people's trust. Locals never saw her as a threat. She always seemed so ordinary, but behind her calm, almost sweet demeanor, there was a thirst for revenge and gold. Her first major robbery was carefully planned. She orchestrated an attack on a mail stage in New Mexico, recruiting several men for her gang. Laura never killed anyone, but her cold-blooded tactics were chilling. She used a man, her lover, to convince the guards to surrender. These relationships became her advantage. She knew how to manipulate people, how to exploit the weaknesses of those around her for her own gain. Her ability to disguise herself and change her appearance became one of her most notable traits. Laura used everything from simple country dresses to full men's outfits. On one occasion, she even dressed as a man to pass through a checkpoint and fool the sheriff. The ease with which she changed her appearance was impressive. Once she infiltrated a mail train, blending in with the passengers. Nobody noticed anything odd about her appearance. Her clothes and demeanor were entirely normal. Even when the criminals entered the cabin, no one could immediately tell that a woman was among them. This was her greatest weapon. Laura wasn't just smart, she was terrifyingly ruthless. She didn't kill, but her coldness and composure often unsettled those who crossed her path. In one instance, when her gang captured a group of passengers, she didn't hesitate to force them to hand over all their valuables. There were no untouchables for her. Everyone was at her mercy, even those who might have been allies. Laura believed that power wasn't just about strength, it was about control over emotions, and she mastered it. In one robbery, she organized an attack on a large ranch where gold bars were stored. She didn't trust her gang members, and before they could act, she gave them strict orders. No eye contact, no discussing what they had seen. Laura understood that if anyone suspected her, their life would be worth less than her plan. An interesting aspect of her life was her romantic relationships. Laura wasn't an ordinary woman of her time, and her love affairs often became part of her strategy. Her lovers were usually men with power or usefulness. She used her relationships to manipulate situations. One of her most famous romances was with Harry, a man who wasn't just her lover, but a key participant in her criminal network. He wasn't as calculating as Laura, but he became her main ally in stealing mail and gold. When Laura realized that Harry had grown too attached to her, she used his feelings to her advantage. During one of their robberies, she made him take the blame for a failed plan, setting him up with the police. Harry was caught, and Laura vanished into the shadows, changing her appearance and name. Laura was incredibly cautious, and for a long time, she managed to avoid capture. However, by 1886, her trail began to disappear. As her name became more frequently linked to major robberies, Laura knew her time was running out. She vanished without a trace. The hunt for her continued for a long time, but despite numerous attempts, she was never found. Some say she fled to Mexico. Others believe her trail leads to California, where she started a new life under a different name. But the true fate of Laura Jeffries remains unknown. Laura Jeffries will forever remain an enigmatic figure of the Wild West, a woman who, despite her fragility and outward gentleness, managed to lead a criminal gang and use her beauty, intellect, and ruthlessness to achieve her goals. Her name was whispered in saloons, and even decades later, her story continues to stir the imagination. She was more than just a female criminal. She was a strategist, a manipulator, and a vengeful soul. Laura Jeffries became part of the Wild West myth, where every step could lead to death, and where even a woman could